Welcome to Clear Creek Community Church Online. My name is Ryan Leighton. I'm the pastor of our Egret Bay campus. Clear Creek is made up of multiple campuses located throughout the Bay Area of Houston. And while we're so glad that you've joined us here to watch this sermon today, you should know that we believe that life is better when we do it together. You see, when we gather as a church, it's a non-downloadable experience. Singing together, praying together, serving together. These are all things that just don't translate online, but they're essential to the entire experience of becoming a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ. So I encourage you, make plans to check out the campus nearest you and see what worshiping and living in community is really all about. You can visit our website at clearcreek.org to find information about our locations, service times, and much more. But listen, we hope to see you soon.
And this is the Easter story. The death of Jesus on the cross was followed by, on the third day, his disciples ran to a tomb. They went inside. His body's not there because he is risen just as he said he would. And so we're a part of people who gather all around the world to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus today. And I have no doubt that most people, maybe not all, but most people in this room believe that Jesus was raised from the dead. Did you know that at Easter, every year at Easter, there are certain companies that do research around the country about what Americans believe about God and about Jesus and his resurrection and so on. And so the latest research says 66% of Americans believe, and I'm going to quote what the study says, they believe the biblical accounts of the physical resurrection of Jesus are completely accurate. The biblical accounts of the resurrection of Jesus, completely accurate. 66% of Americans believe that. Now, I'm not doubting that that's true, but it is perplexing to me that that many believe that. Because have you been on the freeway around here? I mean, the whole resurrection of Jesus thing is about who Jesus is, right? And so if people believe who Jesus is and what Jesus teaches, then people are crazy in the way that people treat each other, right? And you would think that, no. If you believe in the resurrection of Jesus, that really affects and changes how we live. And then I started thinking, well, this is true about a lot of our lives. We believe something, and it doesn't necessarily make a dent in how we live our lives. I'll give you an example. So most people believe that in order to be healthy, you need to eat right and exercise regularly. Anybody believe that around here? Yeah, a lot of people believe that. And yet, how many people really eat right and exercise regularly, right? We know fast food's bad for us, but sometimes you got to have some Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's the Lord's bird, you know, and you just got to have it. I have a friend, though, that he really believes this. I mean, I've never seen anyone eat so clean, exercise so regularly. It seems like his belief made it all the way into his everyday kind of behavior. But he wasn't always that way. Something happened in his life that connected his belief and his behavior. You know what happened? He had a heart attack at 50. At 50 years of age. And all of a sudden, what he said he believed theoretically made its way into what he really believed personally. So here's how the principle works. Beliefs don't become powerful until it becomes personal. It doesn't become powerful until it becomes personal. Now, at Easter, this is a good time to think about this principle. Because you can believe something about the resurrection of Jesus, and it doesn't become powerful until it becomes personal. Because you would think, the resurrection of Jesus, I think indisputably, is the most significant event in the history of the universe. Someone claimed to be God, lived a sinless life, so sinless that even those who were his critics wouldn't dispute that he was such a good man. And then he died on the cross, not for himself, but for others. and he claimed he was going to be raised from the dead, and then he was. And if you're around here very often, you hear me say often, someone tells you they're going to die and then come back to life, and they do it, you ought to believe anything they say. So, surely, then, if Jesus is resurrected from the dead, that should affect how we actually live, how we love, how we die. It should affect every part of our life. But can we just be honest a minute? I mean, surely some of us would say, I believe in the resurrection of Jesus, but I can't really tell you that it makes any impact in my everyday life. Why is that? And how can that change? That's what I want to talk to you about today. We're going to go back to the Easter story. And I think as we do, we can see some of the answers about how we connect our beliefs with our lives. We're going to look at John chapter 21. And in John 20 is the story of the resurrection. And in John 21, we see Jesus at work in the life of one of his followers who had gone into the tomb. He saw the tomb was an empty tomb, but something was not connected for him. His name is Peter. And we're going to see what kind of connections Jesus helps him with. Maybe it'll help us as well. I need to give you some backstory first. Here's the backstory about Peter. On the night that Jesus was betrayed and arrested, he was with his disciples outside of Jerusalem. And in Mark chapter 14, we hear what Jesus says to them. Now you should know, the Gospel of Mark is really Peter's story. Mark is known to have written down what Peter's story was about his experience with Jesus. And so verse 26, it says, and Jesus said to them, you will all fall away, for it's written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee. That's going to be important in a moment. And Peter said to him, even though they all fall away, I will not. And Jesus said to him, truly, I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said emphatically, if I must die with you, I will not deny you. To be fair, all those other guys said the same thing, right? So Jesus says, okay, I'm going to be arrested and all of you are going to run away. And Peter says, Jesus, all these losers may run away from you. I'm your ride or die. I am with you no matter what. And before the night's out, what happens? He denies him 3 times. And Peter is devastated by this. He's devastated that he didn't live into what he claimed to believe. So that's the backstory. And we're going to look at next how Jesus helped him connect his beliefs with his life. So after the resurrection, the disciples went north from Jerusalem to the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. And that's where we pick it up in John 21, beginning in verse 1. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. This is not the first time he revealed himself. And he revealed himself in this way: Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, this is James and John, and 2 other of his disciples were together. And Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. They said to him, we're going to go with you. And they went out and they got in a boat, but that night they caught nothing. Now remember, Jesus said he was going to meet his disciples in Galilee, and this is in Galilee. They're waiting on Jesus. Peter decides he's going to go fishing, and there's a lot of debate as to what that really means. I mean, some say, well, Peter was kind of turning back to his old way of life. He was a professional fisherman before he started following Jesus. And others say, no, he's not going back. He's just getting something to eat. He needed some money, whatever. So he goes fishing, and we really don't know why, but we know this. He's the professional fisherman. He goes out, and he gets skunked. I mean, zippo did they catch, right? And so pick it up in verse 4. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, and yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? In other words, hey, boys, you got any fish? They answered him, no. And he said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. And so they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved, therefore, said to Peter, it is the Lord. And when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. So Jesus finally shows up. The sun is kind of peeking over the hillside near the lake. They don't see that it's Jesus. And Jesus says, hey, you caught any fish? No. Throw your net to the other side of the boat. And when they do, bingo, they hit the jackpot, right? Big haul of fish. Now, what's really happening in this text? So John, who is the one that the Lord loved, is referred to as in the passage. John knows immediately that it's Jesus. How does he know that? Because Jesus, in this passage, is recreating a miracle that he's already done for Peter. In Luke chapter 5, when Peter is really knowing Jesus for the first time, he's fished all night, he's caught nothing, and the Lord says, cast your net on the right side of the boat. He does, bingo, catches this big haul of fish. And it's all happened again for him. And John was there too, and immediately knows it's the Lord. And Peter gets so excited because this was the moment where Jesus said to him, now I'm going to make you a fisher of men. It was significant in the life of Peter. I love Peter's response. I mean, he's so excited about this that it's kind of like when Forrest Gump saw Lieutenant Dan, he just goes straight into the water. And all the other disciples are like, hey, man, that's why they make boats. We're going to take the boat in. But Peter just can't wait to get to Jesus. Why? Here's the key. Because this was Peter's miracle. This was what Jesus was doing for Peter to make it personal. It's personal. And it's about to get more personal. Verse 9. And when they got out on the land, they saw a charcoal fire in place with fish laid out on it and bread. And Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have caught. And Jesus is making breakfast for everyone. Now that seems pretty benign, except he mentions this charcoal fire. Why? Because if you were to read the Gospel of John, there's only one other place that you would hear about a charcoal fire. And it would be about the night that Peter was warming himself by a charcoal fire when Jesus had just been arrested, and Peter denied Jesus around that fire 3 times. This is a call to remembrance of Peter's biggest failure. And Jesus is intentionally doing this, not to shame Peter at all, just the opposite. He's doing something to help Peter see that all of this about the cross and the resurrection of Jesus, this is personal. Peter's sin is personal. And therefore, his forgiveness needs to be personal. We've been talking about forgiveness around here for the last couple of weeks. And we've said that forgiveness is necessary because there is brokenness and sin in the world. And God, out of his love for us, makes a way for forgiveness. If you open the Bible and read the Bible much, you'll see that every road is a road that either leads to or from forgiveness. Because God knows this about us. He knows this about me. That I can't undo yesterday and the sins of my past. And I can't guarantee you that I'm not going to mess up tomorrow. There will be sins in my future. And so God has made a way through his son Jesus so that his justice is poured out on all sin. And sin can be genuinely forgiven. And there can be a reconciliation, a restoration to God. And that's what this is all about. Now, the charcoal fire doesn't help Peter immediately feel forgiven, right? It just helps him remember his sin. We have to start there. But there is next a conversation. Look at verse 15. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? More than all these other guys, like he said he did. And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, feed my lambs. And he said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, tend to my sheep. And he, Jesus, said to Simon Peter the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Don't miss how intentional Jesus is being here. 3 times Peter denied Jesus, and 3 times Jesus asks him a question. Now, when Jesus asks a question, it's not because he doesn't know the answer. He's asking a question to make a point. And the question is, Peter, do you love me? And the first time he says, more than these. That would have been humbling. Do you love me? Do you love me? Notice what the question is not. The question is not about beliefs. He didn't say, Peter, do you believe in me? Peter, do you believe I died on the cross for you? Peter, do you believe in the resurrection? Because you've been in the tomb. You saw that I'm not there. He doesn't ask the belief question. Why? Because this is about it being personal. He asks a personal question. The issue is not, do you believe the right thing, but it is, do you have the right relationship with God? That's the point. That's when it becomes personal. When it becomes about your relationship with God. And so, let me kind of review the story. Peter knew that Jesus died on the cross, but he needed a charcoal fire to make it personal. To say, your sin can be forgiven because of what Jesus did on the cross. And Peter knew that Jesus was raised from the dead, but he needed a conversation, a question about, do you love me? Because he needed to know that the risen Jesus wants a relationship with us, and that's what makes it personal. Because belief doesn't become powerful until it becomes personal. Or said a more positive way, belief becomes powerful when it becomes personal. This is what Aaron Suri's story was about. The video story you saw. It was about a guy who grew up in the church. He was religious, always went to church, believed the right things, knew the right stories, but he never made the connection. I mean, he had beliefs, but it wasn't connected to his life. Because he would say today, because it never was personal. He said, it was in my head, it wasn't in my heart. It wasn't connected to my life. And so when people have faith in Jesus, sometimes their whole faith is built around going to church, or they prayed a prayer sometimes. Their parents were devout in their faith, or maybe they're part of the 66% who believe in the resurrection of Jesus, and they say, yeah, I believe. But has belief connected with life? Has it become personal? Because it wasn't a rule or a law or a belief that came out of the tomb. It was a person. Jesus came out of the tomb so that we could know him. That's how it becomes personal. Actually, what makes the connection personal is when, here it is, our brokenness meets God's goodness. Our need meets the work of Jesus. Belief becomes personal where our brokenness meets God's goodness. So, what would that look like? Well, for some, I think it just looks like forgiveness. We acknowledge that we need forgiveness, and that's what the cross of Jesus is about. That's personal. It's personal when you're living your life and you look around and you think, man, I know there's more than this because I'm made for more than this, and we are. The Bible says that God put eternity in our hearts, that we have this longing for God, a relationship with God. And the love of Jesus makes that possible. Our future needs a purpose. I mean, Jesus told Peter, feed my sheep, tend my lambs. That was his, but God has a purpose for all of us. And so when it gets beyond just I believe something to I have this relationship with God, and now I'm involved in God's purpose in the life because he's got a call on my life. It's personal. And the same thing happens when we face death. I mean, our death needs a resurrection. We're all going to die, right? But only one was resurrected from the grave, and that's Jesus. And that's why we got to have this connection so that it becomes personal. So, on this Easter, can I point you to some next steps? For some of you who maybe you're not a part of that 66%, you say, yeah, I may be interested a little bit, but I'm not sure I believe that Jesus was raised from the dead, that he is who he claims to be. You know, there are a lot of people who've never really done the work to see what they believe. They believe what they believe because someone else believed it. And they say, well, I believe them, so I'll believe this. I want to urge you, figure out what you believe. I mean, it's still got to be connected to your life, but figure out what you believe. And we'd love to be a part of that process for you. You should know, we have people here all the time who say, I don't know if I believe in God or not. And we try to create opportunities for people to be on this journey to figure out what they believe. We do a class called Starting Point. And Starting Point is going to start again on May the 1st. You can go on our website and register for it. And it's a way to be in a dialogue with people who are all asking questions about faith and whether or not they can really believe this. So it's an opportunity. And another next step. You know, there are a lot of people that Easter becomes a really good front door back into a walk with the Lord and with the church. A lot of people get disconnected. Maybe it's because of pandemic. Maybe it's because of some other thing. And this is an opportunity to reconnect with Jesus and his church. And part of that is gathering for worship, but there's nothing better than being in a closer relationship with other people who are followers of Jesus. So maybe being a part of a small group would be a way to really connect. But for all of us, we come back to say, am I making it personal? Do I think that my faith is just about some things I believe that quite frankly don't make a big difference in my everyday? Or is it about the fact that I need God? I need him in my life. So I want to ask our band to come out. And in a moment, I want to invite you to a time of prayer, really about just making faith personal. And so we'll put this prompt on the screen so you can look at that and pray as you want to pray. The band is going to then sing a song over us. And then I'm going to come back and lead in a prayer. So I invite you now just to enter into a season of prayer, praying about what would it look like for faith, your faith, to be personal, and how would you connect with one of those needs in your life that you bring to God.